Good morning again.
Good morning.
It is a joy and a privilege to gather together today as we reflect on the meaning of stewardship in our lives. Stewardship Sunday is not just about supporting our church financially. It's about asking ourselves what we truly value and what we dedicate our lives to, and how we manifest our values in the world. John Wimber once said, "Show me where you spend your time, money, and energy, and I'll tell you what you worship." This is a powerful and provocative statement. It challenges us to look at how we live our lives, not just what we say we believe, but how our actions align with our deepest commitments. So today we ask, what do we worship? Not in the sense of bowing before an altar, but in a sense of devotion, attention, love. What do our lives say about what we truly honor? I had an unexpectedly philosophical conversation with a coworker about Unitarian Universalism. She's very Southern, very Christocentric, and she was having a real difficult time wrapping her head around the diversity of belief about God, gods, or no God that you might find in a Unitarian Universalist church. So she asked me a very direct question. She said, "So, if y'all don't agree on God, what do y'all worship anyway?" It was a good question, and it made me think about the word worship. The word worship can be used in Unitarian Universalist circles and sometimes isn't, because it can carry connotations of blind allegiance, hierarchy, or dogma, things we tend to question rather than embrace. But at its root, worship comes from the Old English, and I'm about to mispronounce this, "weorthscape," meaning to ascribe worth to something. To worship something is to declare it worthy of our time, our resources, and our passion. So let's consider Wimber's challenge. Where do we spend our time? Sorry, I'm having a paper malfunction. Where do we spend our time? Where do we invest our money? And where do we focus our energy? These questions illuminate what we actually value, not just what we say we value. In the Christian tradition, there's a well-known story about a wealthy young man who approaches Jesus and asks, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus tells him, "Sell all you have, give the money to the poor, and come follow me." The young man walks away grieving because he can't let go of his wealth. Now, let me say as a side note, I always feel like Jesus was a bit harsh when I read this story. Even the Mormons only asked for 10%. But at first glance, you would think it's a story about money being bad. But there's an argument that this story isn't really about whether money is good or bad. It's about attachment. The young man wanted to be a good person, but when confronted with the reality of what that might mean, he found he was more devoted to his possessions than his spiritual growth. We too face similar choices. Which wolf do we feed? We may say we value justice, but do we invest our time and money in causes that fight for it? We may say we cherish our families, but do we spend more time at work than with them? We may say we love this church, but do we contribute to its well-being with our gifts of time and financial support? Let's start with time. In our fast-paced, overcommitted world, time is one of our most precious resources. We often feel like we never have enough of it. But time is also something that we choose how to spend. Every day we make decisions, consciously or unconsciously, about where our time goes. And those choices shape not just our schedules, but our lives. Consider these questions. How much time do we spend nurturing our relationships with loved ones, with ourselves, and with our spiritual community? Do we dedicate time to service, to causes that uplift the world? Do we make time for rest, renewal, reflection? If we claim that justice, compassion, and community are core values, our calendars should reflect that as well. If we say we honor our spiritual growth, there should be time set aside for prayer or meditation or reading or simply gathering with others in meaningful ways. Our time is a mirror to our priorities. And what does it reveal? It's easy to get caught up in the idea that we're going to make time later, when life slows down, when work is less demanding, when responsibilities ease. But the truth is, life rarely offers us that perfect moment. One of the greatest acts of stewardship is choosing to be present now, for ourselves, for each other, and for what matters most. When we give our time with intention, we shape a life of meaning, connection, and purpose. Now, let's talk about money. Money is an uncomfortable topic in many churches and households and businesses. And it's a very uncomfortable topic for your minister. I grew up in a household where money wasn't talked about except in private and in very loud voices. And talking about money around poor farming folk can be misinterpreted as bragging. So most of the conversations I heard were just about the lack of money, but never about money itself. I was also taught to watch out for preachers standing in pulpits talking about money, because this was at the height of the televangelists taking folks' Social Security checks. And I have never wanted to be mistaken for one of those guys. In divinity school, my professor referred to Stewardship Sunday as the yearly sermon on the amount. But it doesn't really matter if clergy is comfortable talking about money. Clergy needs to talk about money. Because ultimately, money isn't just about survival, it's about values. Every dollar we spend is a vote for the world we want to create. Do our spending habits align with our ethics? Do we invest in things that promote justice, sustainability, and community well-being? Do we financially support institutions like this church that nourish our souls and serve the greater good? Many of us wrestle with feelings of scarcity, and I know I do. I find myself worrying, will there be enough? But stewardship is about trust. Trust that generosity creates abundance, not just for others, but for ourselves as well. When we give freely, we affirm that we are part of something larger than ourselves. We declare that we believe in the power of this community and in its mission. Giving to this church is not just about keeping the lights on. It's about sustaining a sanctuary of hope, love, and transformation. Our energy is more than just physical exertion. It's about attention and passion and engagement. It's the force that drives us forward, the spark that fuels our creativity, the commitment that sustains our relationships. Where we choose to focus our energy shapes not only our personal lives, but the communities we are a part of. Think about what excites you. Where do you direct your emotional and your mental energy? What brings you alive? What are the moments when you feel most connected, most fulfilled, most in tune with something greater than yourself? These moments matter because they reveal where our deepest values lie. When we are engaged in something meaningful, our energy isn't depleted, it's renewed. Our church is sustained not just by financial contributions, but by countless acts of service that people bring. Teaching religious education, leading social justice initiatives, organizing events, offering music, welcoming newcomers, simply showing up. Every small act of presence and participation strengthens the fabric of our community. A warm greeting at the door, a shared cup of coffee, a thoughtful question in a discussion group. These are all ways we invest our energy in one another. And if we love this community, we will continue investing our energy. A thriving church is not just the responsibility of a minister or a leadership team. It's created by all of us. Beloved community is the responsibility of every community member. And it's built in moments of generosity and care, and the willingness to listen deeply, and the courage to step forward and offer our gifts. When we give our energy to something beyond ourselves, we discover that we too are uplifted. This is how love moves in the world, through us together, creating something sacred and enduring. I have often heard stewardship referred to as a fundraising drive. that is too small a vision. True stewardship is a spiritual practice. It is how we declare this matters. I am committed. I am part of something larger than myself. This church, like all sacred spaces, is not sustained by accident. It exists because of the generosity of those who came before us and the commitment of those here today. What kind of community do we want to build for those who will come after us? What kind of legacy do we want to leave? Stewardship is not just about financial giving, though generosity in material ways is vital. It's also about how we show up, how we care for one another, how we nurture the spirit of this place. It's easy to think of stewardship as responsibility, something that we should do. But what if we reframed it as an opportunity? An invitation to take part in something sacred, to be stewards of hope, of belonging, of transformation. This church is not just a building. It is a living, breathing covenant among us. It's a promise we make to one another and to the generations that will follow. May we embrace this practice of stewardship with open hands and open hearts, knowing that what we sustain today will shape the future. Show me where you spend your time, money, and energy, and I'll tell you what you worship. What do our choices say about what we worship? As we enter this time of stewardship, let us see this as an opportunity to align our lives with our highest values. Let us not give out of obligation, but out of joy. Let us practice stewardship not as a burden, but as an act of faith. May that be so.